The first day was a nightmare. I was just so out of my comfort zone. I'm working with Jim Courier and then John McEnroe. I had 2 matches that very first day. The imposter syndrome was raging. But quickly, all that prep, that 7 months of preparation, all those notes, little nuggets, and just all of that kind of came together fairly quickly. As each day went on, I felt more and more comfortable being with these huge figures in the game. Chris Everett and John McEnroe and Jim Courier and Lindsay Davenport. I've called a lot of sports, a lot of great moments, including Stephen Curry breaking the NBA three-point record, LeBron James breaking the all-time NBA scoring record. I've never been a part of a sporting event like this. The elite athleticism, the elite effort, the stakes that they were playing for, and no physio breaks, no bathroom breaks, just 2 guys standing in there for 5.5 hours just taking it.
Welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast where your voice matters most. Hosted by Hall of Fame sportscaster Jim Powell. This is the show that puts fans at the heart of the conversation. Whether you're cheering in the stands, screaming at the TV, or debating with friends about the latest trades, Fans First is here to amplify your thoughts, your insights, and your love for the game.
Hello and welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast. I'm Jim Powell. I'm your host. I'm honored to be in that role again today. But first, we've got some great news. We have a wonderful new sponsor for Fans First, a sports podcast. It's the Georgia Advisory Group. It's a longtime, very successful financial services firm with over 120 years of combined experience. It's run by Dave Dooley. He's the founder. He's been there from the beginning. And Dave is a big sports fan, and he's kind of built his business kind of like you would build an all-star team. He's got a Georgia Advisory Group riddled with all-stars like a full-time CPA, investment advisors, money managers, insurance experts, estate planning professionals. They have their clients covered in every way. One of the many things I love about the Georgia Advisory Group is that it is a fiduciary, which means it has a legal and ethical duty to put their clients' interests first. Lots of us get nervous about trusting someone else to oversee our hard-earned money, but I have known Dave Dooley and his family for decades, and I can tell you he is a rock-solid human being and someone I trust implicitly. Once you get to meet him, you'll quickly understand why his firm has been so successful at helping people make the most of what they have. You don't stay in business this long in a city like Alpharetta, Georgia, unless you are a very respected person, and Dave is certainly that. He and his team sincerely care more about their clients than they do even about themselves. But don't just take my word for it. Go check them out. The Georgia Advisory Group can be reached at 770-746-6511. That's 770-746-6511, located in the heart of downtown Alpharetta, Georgia. Hello and welcome to Fans First, a sports podcast. I am honored once again to be your host, and I'm really honored by our guest today, Brian Anderson. And he and I have known each other for a long time, so it's going to sound like I'm blowing smoke up his skirt, but I'm not. He's actually one of the best broadcasters in terms of play-by-play of any sport in the United States. And now he's branching out internationally. He just got back from the French Open tennis tournament, where he got a chance to work with some luminaries in the booth and got to see some incredible tennis on the court. Brian Anderson has joined us here from Los Angeles, where he's out there meeting with the Turner sports people. I'm sure they're just making cakes for him and doing whatever because he did such a nice job at the French Open. But it's great to have you, B.A.
Great to be with you, Jim, and thanks for letting me in your tennis world. I'm back to our traditional sport, baseball, getting ready for Dodgers Padres on TBS as we record this on Tuesday. So, yeah, after a whirlwind in Paris, it's kind of nice to get back to a sport where my brain is not so stretched and fried. But I really enjoyed tennis, and thanks for all your help, Jim. Jim was one of my Yodas, one of my tennis Yodas, because I know you love the sport a lot and you know the sport so well. We were able to have some good conversations about it. So, yeah, it feels like a lifetime sport for me now. Lifetime sport to call, lifetime sport to play. I didn't play it for 30 years just because I don't know why. But, man, it's kind of it's the perfect sport for Brian Anderson 2.0 in my senior years now.
Well, it's a great example of what makes you so great as a broadcaster, play-by-play in multiple sports. You make it look so easy, and you make it so much fun to watch the game because you never try and intrude on the game. Or in the case of the French Open, the tournament itself, you just make sure we get the right information, and you do a great job bringing the best out of your partners. So, this part of what you did was basically embed yourself into the tennis scene and took your racket and played with some big names, and just got to know the sport, which is exactly what Brian Anderson would always do. You're not going to just go halfway on anything. So Brian, you did exactly what I would have expected you to do when you're picking up a sport that you really don't have a lot of experience in, and you want to make sure that you're prepared. In fact, you and I were texting even as you're flying across the ocean to go to France, and you're talking about, the stress already. But what you did to build up to it, I'm sure relieved a lot of stress. And that is you went out and played the game a lot, and you met a lot of the luminaries in the sport before you even got to the French Open.
Yeah, that was just a strategy. I signed a contract extension in October. And actually, we had been talking about this contract extension with TNT Sports in September. And Roland Garros was always part of it. It was not like you don't have to do it. I mean, but part of this new contract, because we lost the NBA at TNT Sports, the things that I would do would be college basketball, March Madness, MLB regular season, MLB postseason, the match, which is our golf event, and then Roland Garros. So that was kind of the extra thing. So the question was asked, do you want to do it? I said, I don't know if I'm the best person to do it. My boss responded with, we want you to do it. We think you'd be great at it. And we're going to give you the resources and the tools and the time to prepare. So remember, this is late September. And so once we got all that agreed and all that was done, then for me, I took the same path that I took when I got the Golf Channel job, which is before you and I knew each other. Before I got the Brewers job in 2007, 4 years prior to that, I had gotten a huge opportunity to call golf in 2003. And prior to that, I really had no golf experience. I loved the sport, played the sport, worked in the golf business. Like when I was a minor league announcer, folding shirts and making tee times. So, I was around the sport a little bit, but in 2002, when I was interviewing for that job and subsequently got the job, then I took a series of lessons. I got really serious about playing just because I learned better when I'm playing the sport and immersed in it the way I was. So I really took that same philosophy that I did with Golf Channel, and that was a successful thing for me to do, and it worked well. So I took the same idea with a lot more resources, to be honest, with TNT Sports. I mean, they flew me to Paris in November. I went to the Rolex Masters Series, which is an ATP event toward the end of the season in Paris, in Bercy, which is just a town outside Paris. So that afforded me 4 days of watching 4 matches a day, almost like a baseball scout would, sitting there. I don't have any responsibilities on the air, but I'm just grinding and making notes and watching targeted players from the top of the ATP tour at this point, which a lot of those guys obviously ended up being in my window when I did Roland Garros just a few weeks ago. So that was huge. It also afforded me the chance to go over to Roland Garros when it's all quiet and shut down and tarps are on the clay, and meet with the FFT, the French Tennis Federation is how we call it. But meet with the executives of the FFT. Gilles Moriton was the president of that group, and I was able to spend some time with him and just be on the grounds for a couple of days. And so I did all of that, and that really set me up. Then I went to Indian Wells in March. I spent 4 days at Indian Wells between NBA assignments. And then in between, just knowing this was coming, watching Tennis Channel, reading every tennis writer I could read, and like you said, immerse in the game in a way that I probably won't even have to do next year because I needed all the foundational pieces. And, I got to be pretty close with some really great writers, guys like John Wertheim and Christopher Clary, who is kind of the Peter Gammons of tennis, in our world, in the baseball world. And he's written two great books, one on Federer and one that just got released called The Warrior on Rafa Nadal. And so, like to be in their company and just be able to riff with those guys and them knowing what I'm trying to accomplish and them welcoming me in their world. Prakash Armitage is another guy that I leaned on heavily. He's on Tennis Channel. His father's in the Hall of Fame. Obviously, Vijay Armitage is a very significant figure, not only as a player, but as the president of the ATP Tour. So just to be in Prakash's company, and then guys like you and the guy hired to be my teacher and my instructor in Milwaukee over the wintertime, guy named Tim Hartwick, who trains a lot of elite level younger, talented players. I was by 30 years, his oldest client he's ever had, but he accepted the challenge. I told him what I was trying to do, and he loved that idea. And, he trained me like he would a 16-year-old elite level tennis player that's trying to either turn pro or go to college. So he put me through the ringer, man. And, he had all of his top level players hit serves at me because I needed to feel what 120, 130 mile an hour serves look like. And there's no way I'm returning those, but as an athlete, a college baseball player, and somebody who likes to stay active, that was invaluable for me just to see what a kick serve looks like, to feel what a kick serve feels like. Now, that was hard court. That's not on clay, but I did go spend some time on the gray clay, the Hartrue down in Austin. So the green clay, which is something I had not experienced before. So all of that was like part of my process, and TNT willing to fly me these places to be ready for Roland Garros was, I just give them so much credit. And, the first day was a nightmare. I was just so out of my comfort zone. I'm working with Jim Courier and then John McEnroe. I had two matches that very first day, had a Tiafoe match and then a Ben Shelton match. And man, the imposter syndrome was raging. But quickly, all that prep, that 7 months of preparation, all those notes that I had put together and little nuggets and just all of that kind of came together fairly quickly. So then we were off and running at that point. And as each day went on, I felt more and more comfortable on the air being with these like huge figures in the game. Chris Everett and John McEnroe and Jim Courier and some contemporaries too. I work with Lindsay Davenport, but Coco Vandeweghe had just come off the tour. Chris Eubanks had just come off the tour. So these were people that like have contemporary knowledge of players and played against a lot of the players. So it was very overwhelming, but also they were very welcoming, and I'm really glad I did it. And I am now set up to do it for many years to come. It's like learning a new language. Now I'm barely fluent, and now I'm prepared for whatever is to come on this venture.
I want to get deeper into the French Open as we move along here, Brian. Everybody calls you BA. I'm guessing, does your wife call you BA, or does she at least call you Brian?
No, she has other names for me, Jim, and we'll keep that between us. No, she, it's Brian, and when I'm in real trouble, it's the full name. It's the government name.
I got it. I
think
BA
I've had
is
it. Quickly, the tennis guys didn't get into the B. Jim Courier did right away, which was interesting because I don't ask people to call me anything, like whatever you want to call me. John McEnroe never went the BA route. He was always Brian, which felt like I was always in trouble with John McEnroe when he'd say my name like that. But tennis folks kind of adapted pretty quickly to the BA.
I keep trying to get out of my mind this picture of you having people hit 110 mile an hour serves at you. And you know, I'm thinking of like the old Westerns where somebody pulls out a gun and starts shooting at the guy's feet and they're dancing all around trying to get out of the way. Did it feel kind of like that as you were trying to at least put a racket on a ball?
I didn't get the instruction about how to do it. There's literally like three people lined up. One of them's a 6'8" sophomore who attends Brookfield, and he fires at 120 miles an hour. And so like they loved it because they all kind of know me from the Brewers. They're all Brewers fans. And they it was a thrill for them to see this 53-year-old man over there. But they let me kind of figure it out. And I learned real fast that stepping up on the baseline is not where you want to take those serves. So now I moved back as far as I could, which was interesting, and then you're learning like what the counters are to a receiver moving back. What are the counters if you go out wide, and the kick serves? And so, to me, it was like the best education I could get.
Well, guys like you and me,
from a player's perspective,
we're kind of similar height. So, I've tried to do the same thing. I've tried to move up on the baseline to return serves, and you find out that's a bad idea. And then you move back, and they bounce it, they kick it down, and it jumps over your head, and you can't touch that either. So, yeah, it's congratulations on you for persevering in that.
It's not a short man's sport, is what I found right away.
Yes, the geometry for our serves, everything is much more difficult for us. At least that's the story we're sticking to.
That's why I'm so amazed at Jasmine Paolini. She's 5'4".
I would never have thought she could do what she did.
She's a dynamo right now, and I've been totally enthralled with her story. And she won the tournament in Rome in her home country prior to Roland Garros, and then obviously won doubles. She won the doubles at Roland Garros. Got knocked out fairly in the middle of the tournament, which is a surprise. But yeah, the short ones, I'm kind of like, those are my people. The short kings and queens. And so I'm like, De Minaur is not that tall either, but man, he's very comfortable returning basically at shoulder height or head height. I am not.
Nor am I.
That's
my
an
friend.
automatic
Nor
point.
am I. So I want to get to the final, because you were, you had a front row seat to one of the greatest tennis matches of all time. Sinner and Alcaraz toe to toe. My wife and I, we try and play with the DVR. We're going to pause it and take a break and maybe go get a sandwich and then come back and then fast forward and do all that stuff. We did that several times. I'd come back expecting the match would now be over because we'd been gone for a while, and it's still like it's only 4 hours in. And it's like we missed the whole thing. So, that match is going to go down as one of the classics of all time. It's going to be hard for that to be bumped off the top rung.
Agreed. And I don't have the context that you do. So for me, it was a lot of, during commercials, because the things that I'm good at, and you are too, because you've been around high level athletes your whole life doing what we do. I can read the room, and I can read athleticism, and I can read pain and progress and joy, and you can just see it if a player's feeling confident. You can see if a player's not. You can see that is natural for me. I do that every day in every sport I ever do, and that's part of the secret sauce of what we do as play-by-play announcers, is to try to tell that story, at least to some level. We don't have the experience of playing at that level, but we do have the experience of reading the players and reading the body language. So that was always my go-to. So as this match is unfolding, and Sinner is he's stone-faced, Sinner gives you nothing. So that was already like a demerit for me, because I'm not getting any feedback from Sinner. Alcaraz is the opposite. He gives you everything. He'd be a terrible poker player because he's an open every book. Emotion is being expressed. And so that was simple for me. And I'm kind of reading that. And in that moment, you get Sinner wins the first 2 sets. It feels like it's going to be a fairly benign final, that Sinner is now like the narrative that we had set up, which these players had earned, was Sinner's has been this dominant player. He's earned his rank. He missed 3 months with a doping suspension that was questionable by all accounts, but he comes back and he's still dominant. But he's got the one nemesis out there, the one guy he can't beat. And at this point, leading into that match, he had lost 4 straight matches, including a final in Rome just weeks before, 2 Sundays prior to when we're doing this event, to Alcaraz. And so that was the one guy. So that, for me as a storyteller and as a guy who's like looking for narratives, that's juicy right away. Like, here's a guy who kills everybody, but has a nemesis. And right away, Sinner takes care of him. Boom, boom. He wins. The first set there was a window there, that could have gone either way. And if Alcaraz doesn't win, you feel like, man, he's in trouble. And it turned out to be that way. And so that's a tie break. And that was one of the 3 tie breaks. So all of a sudden, Sinner clips him, and he's up 2 sets to love. And now it looks like this is now Sinner's turn to be the dominant force in the game for a long time. But then he's not. He's facing 3 championship points, Alcaraz. He's serving He's love 40, serving. The whole thing is on the line. And he comes out of that. And, for me at that moment, I don't have the context you do. So my questions are, wait a minute, this is rare. I've already called 2 5-set matches where the winner of that match in this particular tournament was down 2 sets to love already. I did it with Gael Monfils and I did it with Tommy Paul. So I've already become the Gus Johnson of tennis, calling these incredible moments that never happen when a player comes back in a Grand Slam event down 2 sets to love, and then they come back and win. So I'm already is this crazy? I'm in a third match now where we're talking about a player possibly coming back. And even John McEnroe was like, there's no way, this is done. Center's not going to fold. So I'm asking these questions throughout. Where are we at here? Is this all time? As we get into the 5th set and, Alcaraz does break in that 4th set and then wins in that tie break, it's like, oh my God, now I can sense what's going on here. And I'm asking these questions to the experts offline. Is this top 10, top 5? John McEnroe's like, this may be best ever. So buckle up. And so that was where really my gauge, and thankfully they were, and our producer Ross Schneiderman was great as well. And he's been with Tennis Channel for 20 years. So he's done, 2 decades of French Opens in his career. So he has a great understanding. And then we support it with graphics and we support it with different historical pieces. The people I had around me, my statistician, Greg Sharko, head of the ATP Tour media for 37 years, So I've got people around me that are giving me the context that I need. And I'm very thankful for that. So what an incredible thing to witness. And I say, and I told you this too afterwards, I've called a lot of sports, a lot of great moments, including Stephen Curry breaking the NBA 3-point record, LeBron James breaking the all-time NBA scoring record. I've been a part of incredible games, Trevor Hoffman, 600 saves. I've never been a part of a sporting event like this, with the stakes, the elite athleticism, the elite effort, the stakes that they were playing for, and no physio breaks, no bathroom breaks, just 2 guys standing in there for 5.5 hours, just taking it.
You know what, Brian?
It's as good as athleticism can be.
It's one of the things about tennis that most people really have no concept of, and that is, when you watch a baseball game that goes extra innings, it takes, can take 3-4 hours, or I know they mess with the system now, so you have fewer of the really ultra long extra inning games. But in tennis, and in football, you can have overtime, you can have, super long games, and they just keep playing. But in tennis, they keep playing and they play for 5+ hours. What was the final time on that match?
5:29.
So 5 hours and 29 minutes. And what people don't understand is there are no substitutes. There's no bench. There's no waving to your coach that I need to come out for a quick second. Those 2 athletes just ate it for 5 hours and 19 minutes. And in some ways, of course, the quality of tennis was amazing. But in some ways, that feat stands out to me as the greatest one of all. In terms of people who follow all different sports, they would have no idea that any 2 human beings could do what those 2 guys did.
Yeah, and the level that they're playing too, just the force of every swing. And, you just think about the forehand. So I'm always equating things as I'm watching this unfold. And from our booth position, which would be end zone, which would be same as the game camera that you're seeing. So we're in the end zone looking straight forward at it, up high, 4th level. I'm equating that to all my baseball experience and a starting pitcher throwing that many pitches, utilizing the right arm that much. Both of these players are right-handed. It's man, it's just waylaying these forehands, backhands, the movements, and then, to equate it to baseball too, there's no running out the clock. You have to get the last point, as we saw when Alcaraz chased back 3 of those, and I didn't say it because I had said it earlier in the match, but to me, I'm trying to bring in the casuals. I want them to feel comfortable that somebody that they see in other sports, they're like, oh, well, Brian Anderson and Adam Lefko are on this thing. I've seen them call NBA and call college March Madness, college basketball and MLB. And, like it or not, the tennis crowd can be a pretty walled off crowd, and you live in that world. So it's like, it's a niche crowd, and they're, they let their opinions known about outsiders that come in. And so it's not the most inviting sport for those who are on the outside. And that is a knock to a lot of what has gone on with tennis through the years. I will say our goal at TNT was to try to break down some of those barriers. So one of those ways was me, and putting somebody that maybe people were more familiar with from a casual sense, because the tennis nerds, let's say, are going to get their tennis nerddom. You're going to get all the Hawkeyes and all the analysts that we have. Those are the people that you're going to attach to. But so I'm trying to equate this to other sports. And I remember at one point, I'm like, this feels like a goal line stand to me, which I had said earlier in the match. And people were like, I've never heard anybody say that, goal line stand for fighting off break points, but I didn't say it. But, I was doing things like in France, in Paris, especially like at Roland Garros, the first time you get to 40-40, which we would know as deuce, or 40, 40 all, there's no deuce. There's no word for deuce. They don't say it that way. They actually say the phrase in French, 40-40, basically 40 tied 40. Then the next one is égalité, which would be equal. So I know people are hearing that, and I'm trying to translate what that means in French, like 40 all. And then I would say deuce. And, like my boss even was like, stop saying 40 all. There's no 40 all. And so but that was my mindset the whole time, is to try to equate other sports. And, the notion of like, you can't run out the clock in this game. It's very similar to baseball, where you got to get that 27th out, and there's no running out the clock. And these guys are going to have to win championship point to win the championship. And I tried to make that point as well. So there was a lot of I don't want to say dumbing down, but I will apologize to you and your audience, because I know you know better. But I was doing a lot of that throughout the 2 weeks, where I'm equating something that's very generic in another sport, like a goal line stand, or like getting the 27th out, or the body movements of a speed skater, or in Sinner's case, a skier. He moves like a skier. His head's still, but he's hovering. So I was trying to do that as often as I could, but when my windows came up, basically to hook the casual and bring them into our TNT world, which, our broadcast was focused on bringing you every match, running a whip around show, which we did to great success, and also covering these matches. So I do apologize a little bit, but that was kind of my goal going in.
I also liked, on a tight shot along the line that would hit on the line, you'd say paint. And I've never heard people.
It's a baseball phrase.
Yes, but in tennis, that's like, what's he talking about? Irma. Why is he calling it paint? But I thought that was very good. You didn't use it like over and over and beat people over the head with it, but I thought it was very accurate. And I was like, boy, well, I wish I'd thought of that a long time ago.
You would know both. You're one of the few who knows both worlds. So again, that's me just trying to connect different vernacular from other sports. And I do the same in baseball, by the way. Like, I would say we are both experts in the game of Major League Baseball. We've covered thousands and thousands of games. But I will say, offense scores a run, his pitcher goes out and puts up a 0. I will say hold serve. Or if you bring in a reliever to put up a 0 to get to the bridge, I say hold serve all the time in baseball, with that same idea that you're trying to catch people who may not know the sport like we do. And I was very intentional about it in tennis, probably a little overboard at times. At least the Twitter thumb warriors of the tennis crowd, they let me know, like, we don't say that.
Oh, they're not shy. They're not shy.
They're not shy. But again, like, for me, I felt it was more important. I felt like the diehard tennis fans are going to put up with my non-tennis nonsense because they love the sport. I'm trying to capture the casuals who I want to love the sport from now on. And that was really a stated goal and a broadcasting design to try to do that.
Well, you did a great job of it. I mean, it took you about, 2 matches before I was like, thank goodness we've got somebody that's nice and calm, but also is very well informed here. So I was texting you a fair amount during the tournament. You were wise to ignore most of those, including late in the fifth set when I was John McEnroe. My wife and I are big Sinner fans. Okay, I'd want to be upfront about that. So we're watching that fifth set, and John McEnroe goes over the course of that the last two sets. Really, he just transformed from calling it down the middle and praising the athletes for their great to. We felt he was just openly rooting for Alcaraz. He had just decided Alcaraz has to win and Sinner is not going to win. So that's, so I'm texting you to tell McEnroe to shut up. That's enough.
Yeah, those are easy to ignore, and I would never do that. I think I will say, what was interesting about that, because tennis history well, and obviously John McEnroe's history at Roland Garros with Yvonne Lendl and being up 2 sets to love. I think the notion of where we were going with that, and of course we put the graphic up about that too. He was the top seed that year. It was very similar. There was a very similar dynamic to this, and you could sense a little trauma with that. Like, he's not relinquished that trauma that was 1984, and he's not relinquished that. And you could see it in his eyes. You could see it in his body movements. He was having those memories, and he was blowing it off in some humor. And I credit him for that. But I actually thought, like, to what you're saying, because the crowd and because it was all just rolling Alcaraz's way and he kind of had it in front of him, John was taking the stance of this is how he gets to the finish line from an analyst perspective, but also dealing with his own trauma. Like, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but maybe it's things that he should have done that would have had a different result. I don't know. I'm just, because, I'm kind of like, whoa, he's into it now. And these guys, and that's the beauty of tennis analysts, I would say, more than, we work with guys in baseball that pretty easily move past what's happening in front of them, and baseball players in general. But the tennis folks working with Agassi and Courier and McEnroe, even Lindsay Davenport, like, they are fully invested in the match they're covering and the players they're covering. And they're a lot of times feeling all of that trauma that they felt with the losing side. Even though John McEnroe is he's the Babe Ruth of tennis almost. I mean, I would say, like, he's still one of the most famous tennis people, and he hasn't played in how many years? 30 years, 25 years. So I just felt like he was going through that. And Agassi told me the same thing. He was on my flight the next day, and we had a long talk about it. And he said the same thing, man. He was just feeling hard for Sinner. And that's a new thing for me. Most athletes that we work with that are in the booth now as analysts, they don't accept that. They don't even acknowledge that part of it. So that was really fascinating. Like, the learning that I've been able to do in tennis and all of that, it's just been fascinating to me.
Well, Brian, it's great to have you with us here on Fans First, and I am going to do a little something different for you now. I'm going to flip the switch on Brian Anderson and find out a little something about you and your career and your talent that maybe we otherwise wouldn't have heard from you. And I want to ask you, first of all, we've talked about you've done basketball, you've done baseball, obviously, you've done tennis. What in the world is going on between you and football? Why the hate for football? Why is Brian Anderson just too busy to do football? Can you explain that?
Great question. I grew up in Texas. I played high school football, which, if you don't play high school football in Texas, you're shamed and shunned in your small town. Matter of fact, if you watch the movie Varsity Blues, that is my high school. That stadium and that scene are the townspeople that I grew up with. So that's what it looked like. I did the NFL for a few years with CBS, and it really just becomes about schedule for me. A matter of fact, I started in broadcasting, calling high school football on the radio for a station called Texas 92. So I do have a football background. It's the one sport that I've drifted away from a little bit. Not saying I would never rethink it, but for me, coming through a full baseball season, baseball playoffs, which, as you know, leads into third week of October. And for me, sometimes into November, I don't do the World Series, but I go up to the League Championship Series. Jumping into football is just too much. And I've always done the NBA or college basketball. And so literally I go straight from baseball to basketball, and then trying to fit the NFL or a football schedule in there, plopping in the middle of that season. When I did it for CBS, I did it in 2013, 2014. I was coming in week 7, and it just was too much for me to deal with. I needed some time at home. It wasn't a healthy choice. Baseball is demanding, as you know better than anybody. And so that's why there's not a lot of hate for football. I actually appreciate being a fan of football. It's the one sport I don't really call, so I can just be a fan and kick back and watch and not have to study on or do notes about. So that's really why I don't do football. It's just because I love all the other stuff I do. And, I took a pounding in my football days when I was a player, probably a few concussions that were undiagnosed. So I'm okay not doing football as a profession and only being a fan of the Green Bay Packers at this point.
Well, Brian, it's been a joy to have you on our program. You're very kind and gracious as always. You do a great job. You know all the different sports. And because of all that, we're going to drag you back onto our program again, I'm sure, in the very near future here on Fans First. So we really appreciate your time. You gave us a lot of it. And now put your feet up and relax and enjoy a little bit before you get back to all your other jobs that you still have to worry about. But thank you so much, Brian. We'll see you soon and talk to you very soon.
There's always a hole in the schedule for you, Jim. Thanks for having me, and great to catch up with you again, my friend. And we'll do it anytime. And we got to talk tennis too. And thanks a lot for all your help getting me ready for that incredible Roland Garros of 2025. You were a big part of that for me, so thank you.
Well, we certainly enjoyed our time with Brian Anderson. Great to have him with us on Fans First. Also great to have a feature called Get Off My Lawn on Fans First, a sports podcast. And today we have a visitor coming from Mississippi. His name is George Evans. And George Evans has a comment about sports. And as you know, the way this works is if his comment or any comment is spot on, sincere, insightful, maybe even inspirational, then we don't kick you off the lawn. We celebrate you by ringing the bell. But if you come on here with a really rude, loud, bad, obviously given no thought opinion, that's when you get kicked off the lawn. But let's see what happens with George Evans from Mississippi.
Hey, get off my lawn.
Hey, Jim, love Fans First, man. Really good show. And also, I want to say that we miss you from Braves Radio, man. It's just not the same anymore. Okay, my take is the whole Craig Kimbrell process. Why did we even bother picking him up if we're just going to let him go? You pick up a guy, you put him in the minors, an outstanding reliever, did a lot for the Braves as a big fan favorite and everything. And then you finally bring him up when our bullpen is doing the worst that one could ever imagine. And then you put him in one game, and then he does pretty good, does really well, gets everybody out and whatever. And then the next day, you just let him go. I don't get it. Love to hear your take on this, Jim.
Well, George Evans of Mississippi, I hope you can hear those bells ringing all the way back to your fine state as you have stayed on the lawn. You have not been kicked off. Your opinion was insightful, even inspirational, and it was also understandable. And I know you want a hot take from me on what I think of your opinion. And I got to say, I fully understand where you're coming from. We have to be grown men and women and understand that professional sports is all about one thing and one thing only. It has nothing to do with caring about the players. It has to do with winning games. So you basically handle your rosters in the way that is going to, you hope, is going to win you the most games possible. And you don't worry too much if you hurt people's feelings or you wreck their careers, et cetera, because, hey, the players have agents and they're trying to get their, all their dollars that they can at the same time. So it's an unfortunate part. It certainly plays on the fans' sensibilities when things like this that happened to Craig Kimbrell do happen. But that's a part of the deal. Unfortunately, we all have to kind of eat it. Speaking of that is the end of our program. We really appreciated Brian Anderson coming on with us, spending so much time. And of course, George Evans with his great take from Mississippi. For those fine folks, this is Jim Powell saying that's it for this episode of Fans First, a sports podcast. We'll have another one right around the corner, so keep it tuned to us. And we look forward to having our next guest and our next great sports conversation here on Fans First. For our entire crew, they do such a great job with produceyourpodcast.com. For those folks, this is Jim Powell saying so long for now, but back with another episode before you know it here on Fans First, a sports podcast.
Stay tuned, stay passionate, and keep celebrating the sport you love. Visit us at fansfirstpodcast.com to explore more. Sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive updates and follow the podcast on social media to join our growing community of sports enthusiasts. Your voice matters to us, so don't hesitate to share your thoughts and connect with fellow fans. See you next time.